Today on Crafty Brewers.
3 months later, the mango was separating in the can, and when you poured it in the glass, it looked like it had we're never doing this again. It doesn't matter.
As one of the industry leaders in the sustainability movement as far as brewing, how did Sketchbook become so involved in sustainability, and what does it mean for you and the rest of the company on a day-to-day basis?
And I got an email saying congratulations, you've been selected for the semifinal. We need 6 more bottles. And then all of a sudden I go oh, but I don't have any more.
Oh no.
I sent them all out.
Welcome to Crafty Brewers, Tales Behind Craft Beer, the podcast that will increase your enjoyment of craft, or if you call it local beer, and your admiration for the people who make it. Today, we have traveled to Skokie, Illinois to go from grain to glass with Cesar Marron, head brewer and managing partner of Sketchbook Brewing Company, to share the stories that make each brewer unique. I'm beer drinker and hellraiser Brian Noonan, and all my opinions are strictly my own for good reason. Behind the camera is our executive producer, Cody Goff. Cody, what's got you excited about today's episode?
I'm excited about today's episode because this is a brewery with a particular focus on sustainability. So you're going to learn how they make that happen, how much waste your typical batch of beer creates, and you, listener/viewer, are going to get 2 very simple tips for things you can do today to help the environment better when you drink craft beer. And they're super easy. It's going to be really fun. You'll also learn what is the Sam Adams LongShot Award, how can you win it in the most nerve-wracking way humanly possible, and you'll learn about the fascinating history of alcohol in Evanston, Illinois, home of Northwestern University, involving the temperance movement. We're going to go way back. We're just going to go all over the place.
All right, we are at Sketchbook Brewing Company. This is their Skokie location at 4901 Main Street in Skokie. Sketchbookbrewing.com is the website. A lot of interesting things. First, I'll say hello to Cesar Marron. He is the head brewer and managing partner. Cesar, thanks for being here. I'm going to brag on you guys for a little bit. So try not to, right. Cody has the frame pretty tight, so don't let your head get too big for the frame.
All right. Yeah. Not a lot of space here.
No,
sure.
there is. But this is, I will say, this is the first time we've been in front of a can wall. And because we asked the brewers, hey, why don't you brand yourself? And yes, FOBAB first place and third place awards, top tier awards to brand yourself with. But why not just throw an entire wall of cans behind us? It's perfect. All right. So the brewery opened in 2014. Which it was just Sketchbook in the alley, correct?
That's correct. In the alley in Evanston, yes.
All right, explain that, because was it just you guys sitting in an alley with a keg? How did that work?
Wow. So yeah, I have to dig it up in my memory a little bit, but yeah, it was a group of us, Sean Decker, my principal partner, and a few others from the Homebrew Club in Evanston. Okay. That got together, and we found the space within about a year of thinking I want to take this hobby. Didn't know I was going to take it to an alley. Okay. But I want to take this hobby to a place where I could actually sell my beer legally to people to drink. And we found the spot. There was no retail space at that point. Okay. So we started out with a 7-barrel brew house and no way to sell beer in a glass to anybody by ordinance of the city of Evanston. Okay. Because we didn't have a retail location, a retail door, if you will. But we started with our growler program, right? Okay. So we did our, again also with an eye on sustainability, reuse your bottles. Get on our growler program, which we call the CSB, Community Supported Brewery. Okay. We're not the first ones. Beguile, had that already in the city, and we love that program. And so. No, people didn't come in and with a bucket and then
put the X on their hand with a marker.
But they would come in and get a glass jug and fill it and come. Nice. Some people would take it home and come back an hour or two later. Don't bother rinsing it. We would hear it.
Yeah, that sounds good. That's a good problem to have, that they're coming back that soon. Okay, so then you get to move from the alley into an actual tap room in Evanston.
Correct.
And that was in 2016.
Tax day, April 15th.
Oh, really? Wow. All right. That seems a little... It's a weird day to move in. Unless you're very confident to go, listen, we're always going to be able to pay our taxes with this business. It's going to be great. So then you're in Evanston, and things start to really blow up for Sketchbook. And then in 2020, you opened this beautiful, large tap room, outdoor space, and main production facility in Skokie.
That's right.
And things have been going well. So now let's get to the awards, because you see in front of me, Sketchbook has won a first place at FOBAB. This is a third place at FOBAB. But last year, 2024, Best of Craft Beer Awards for Celestial, the Mexican hot chocolate. That was a silver medal. A bronze medal for Catarina Sour. Then, and we're going to get to this one, 2023 Great American Beer Fest, a bronze for Grodziskie, which is a historic smoked wheat, Polish smoked wheat beer, which we're going to talk a lot more about. Then, also in 2023 World Beer Cup, they win a collaboration, or they won a bronze medal for the America Belgio style ale for Beer for the Soul. It's a pale ale that was brewed in collaboration with Soul and Smoke. There's a FOBAB gold and bronze for the Belgian triple in 23 and 24. Last year, they won the Skokie Business of the Year Award. It recognized their sustainability efforts, their local employment, and community collaborations. They are a certified Illinois green business, and 2022, they were the Chicago Tribune. That's the paper of record. They were the Reader's Choice for Best Under the Radar Brewery. That's a lot. Congratulations.
Filled the page, didn't it?
It did. Listen, that is something to be very proud of. I'm sure you are. All right, let's get to one of the beers that I just mentioned, because you know that phenomenon where you never see a white car till you buy a white car, and then all you see is white cars.
They're all over the place.
Up until a couple episodes ago, neither Cody nor I had heard of a Grodziskie. Grodziskie, right? Is that how you say it?
I'm not Polish, and I've heard it in different ways, but Grodziskie. Grodziskie is what I heard, but yeah.
So we had never heard of that. Then I'm researching you, Cesar, and Sketchbook, and I'm like, hold on a minute. They won an award for theirs? Now, that's twice in 2 months that I've heard about. So, one, congratulations on the medal. Two, explain to people, because I know Cody and I aren't the only ones outside of the Polish community who have not heard of this beer. Mm-hmm. What is it, and and then we'll get into the other interesting part of your particular Grodziskie. So,
Grodziskie, a historic Polish smoked beer. I got interested in that style when I was homebrewing still. Like this must have been like 2012, 2013 now. Because I was getting a little bored of just, making beer and doing it right, doing something I liked, and I wanted to explore something else. My path into learning how to brew was, I want to learn this process now, I want to learn that process, I want to learn how to make this beer well. So I got into water profiles at the time.
Okay.
And the Grodziskie, to try to imitate a true to style Polish Grodziskie, you need to get water that has all the minerals that you would otherwise find from the area of Grodzisk in Poland.
Oh, okay.
And it's relatively, there's a lot of minerals in the water, and luckily we can do that as brewers. It's hard to take it away, but you can put minerals in it. So that's what got me interested in that style. The beer itself is several hundred years ago. Used to be sort of like, it was the champagne of beers in Poland.
Oh, wow.
When you look back in some of the history behind it. With a little bit of age, it can get super clear. It's highly carbonated. We have what we call the champagne of beers in the U.S., right?
Yes, we do.
And so in that style, but with packing a lot more flavor because of that, nice, sweet, and gentle smoke from oak, which was at the time the source of heat for kilning the malt.
Is that hard? Because we've talked to other brewers who say striking the right balance with the smoke is one of the trickiest things you can do.
That is correct for any smoked beers, and I'm a lover of smoked anything, right?
Yeah.
So I can tolerate a lot of smoke and my food, and but it is very true. Depending on the style of beer, if it's a darker beer, a little sweeter, a little more alcoholic, you can take a little bit more. Depending on the wood and on the smoke, you might get phenolic, to the Band-Aid kind of flavor, which is really an off flavor in beer. Yeah. So you want to strike that balance, and for us, the Grodziskie is a light beer. It's like anywhere from 3.8 to 4.1. Ours is 4.1. Ours is like a higher alcoholic. The only thing
crazy with the 4.1.
The only thing we have gotten dinged on when sending this beer for judging sometimes is like it's too much alcohol. So we've actually gone up and down a little bit with it.
Okay.
10 years ago, more or less now. Yeah, 10 years ago, our first few batches of Grodziskie in the brewery were a little higher alcohol, because if we wanted to sell that beer to bars, they didn't want to buy anything that was below 5%.
Yeah.
And that was like, no, not true to style. So we brought it back down to true to style. And
Well, because I mean, lower alcohol beers are very popular now, but 4.1 still seems very low. For competition, where do they want the alcohol level of that?
I mean, sort of true to style, which is low, which is low, 3.5, 3.8 to 4. Yeah.
Now you mentioned the water.
Yes.
Does Lake Michigan water and the barley or the malt and stuff from the Midwest help when you're brewing that style beer?
So the water itself, yes, the water that we get from the Great Lakes is actually, every brewer around here, and if they're not from around here, they're jealous of our water. Right?
People do talk about the water a lot.
It's a water that has enough of the chemicals that we need, but not too much or too little, that you can produce a light beer, you can produce a dark beer. Now there will be people out there more technical than I will say like, well, no, that's not true. I have to. Well, then you can reverse osmosis your water to make a true Czech pills.
Yes.
Right. Water true to style on the water side of things. But yeah, so in our case, our water, we just have to enhance some of the minerals in there, just like you would do a Burton-on-Trent water to enhance some of those hop flavors as well. And I don't know if you have noticed before, but that's before we started the brewery. That was the beer that I won the Sam Adams competition.
That was my next question. Because,
that's why we did this.
Because in 2013, you won the Sam Adams LongShot Award for your Grodziskie.
So that was the first award, really.
Yes,
for
that was well. That's why I was saving that one. We were holding it back, and then we were springing it on everybody. Boom. So all right. So you're just home brewing, and correct me if I'm wrong. What I read was your wife gave you your first homebrew kit.
She did,
and so you start brewing.
It's all her fault.
Listen. She's doing all right. She's probably very happy she made that investment all those years ago. So as you mentioned, you were home brewing and you were trying different styles and you wanted to get them right. So what led you to this one? And tell us about the Sam Adams LongShot. This is the first I've heard of that award.
So and I believe they changed as of recent. They changed that. I mean, they had been running that program, I believe, since 2008, if not earlier. And then they had a little sort of hiatus. It was really a wonderful program by Sam Adams, where they basically they accept beers from the nation.
Okay.
And then they award 2 home brewers with the beers that win, and then 1 internal employee. So it's also like a program that they've always did to kind of like enhance sort of the participation inside of the breweries. That from Boston Beer Company. So there were 3 beers on that 6-pack with our faces on it.
About how many people? Because there's a lot of people that enter, right?
The number I have in my mind was a little over 500, I believe. Yeah, but I don't know if that's for sure. I mean, on each of this area. So there's like a couple of different areas.
Okay.
So it was myself from the Midwest. It was a gentleman, I think his name was Russ, if I'm not mistaken. He was from Florida that won with a American Stout, which was delicious. And then an internal employee, a woman that won with a pineapple IPA, which was also very delicious.
That sounds good too.
And it was like we're predating some of those fruity, hoppy beers that we all love today. And it was a wonderful experience. The reason why I made that beer, I think I mentioned a little bit before, was because I was a little bored and I wanted to learn more on my home brewing journey, if you will, my learning journey in making beer. So water chemistry was what I was interested at the time.
Okay.
I had shipped that beer to a few other competitions, and making a 5-gallon at home. It's a lot of beer.
Yeah.
But it's not a lot of beer at the same time.
Right.
I had a Cesar at home at some point with about 20 different kegs in there. So I didn't have enough friends. I have friends, but I didn't have enough friends to drink all of that. So sending beers to competition was one way for me to just kind of like get rid of some of the beer and see what happens, right? Feedback from judges are great. So I sent that beer out to the Sam Adams competition, and sent it out to a few other places, including the Indiana State Fair, Indiana Brewers Cup.
Yeah.
And I get a phone call or email, I should say, one day working from home downstairs near my homebrew equipment
There you
and
go.
tending to all my brews while working as well. And I got an email from the Boston Beer Company saying like, congratulations, you've been selected for the semifinal.
Okay.
With this beer. We need 6 more bottles. I jumped up, went upstairs to have lunch with Amy, my wife, and the kids, little at the time, like 6 and 5 and 6 or whatever it was then. And I was really happy that had happened.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I go like, oh, but I don't have any more.
Oh no.
I sent them all out. There's no way I can make another one of these beers in 15 days that they needed.
Oh no.
So, but then I remember that I had sent 3 bottles to the Indiana Brewers Cup.
Okay.
I called them and I drove down to Indianapolis, and they were so nice that they said, "Well, there's 1,500 bottles here. We will find your bottles and get it to you."
Wow.
It was probably something that was meant to be, because
Yes,
I found the beers, sent the beers. I overnighted it because I was like, I don't want this to break.
Oh
or
yeah, no,
get-
you got to get them out
and
there.
and then it was selected as one of the 3.
Wow. That's so. Is Jim Cook one of the judges, and then
He
people
was,
from
yes.
the brewery as well?
Yeah, I don't know who judged then at the time, but I know Jim Cook was one of them.
Okay.
Because he mentioned it to me, and he kind of took a liking on something that was very different also than a bunch
Nice.
of the other beers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, congratulations. That's a great story. And so now you have this in your pocket. You're like, all right, I've won this award. I beat the long shot. I got the prize. How then you said you met your partner and your business partner and some other folks in the Home Brewers Club at Evanston. How does that chance meeting turn into all of this?
It was one of those things where I was a little sick of working on the technology business at the time as a consultant, and dealing with tough customers, and that I was just like, let's just take this back to. I grew up in a family business where I saw people all the time. We had a hand in how happy or not happy people were, but we were able to control it, right? So I wanted to take that control a little bit more towards us here. And the other facet of it is I wanted to be able to provide and have more control over my team as well, right?
Okay.
If I wanted somebody to have a raise, I couldn't in my previous job. I had to go through
Yeah,
10
a lot
layers.
of channels. Yeah.
Or if that person, was called into work on a Saturday, I couldn't always just say like, no, let's protect them, because
Right.
they're with family. So that was one of the big drivers for it. And then I didn't want to start with much. I was looking for, I remember, now that we're talking about this, I remember going to the Evanston zoning department, which is where everything starts. If you want to start a business in most towns, I guess, but in Evanston, you go talk to zoning.
Okay.
And it goes through if they think it's okay, it goes through a zoning analysis, and then you go into licensing.
Sure.
So I was describing the business, not on the back of a napkin. It was on a spreadsheet. Professional.
All right.
Readable.
It's beer.
legible.
See, we're gonna make it, and you're gonna drink
And
it.
we were
It's
not the
pretty
first
cool.
alcohol in business in Evanston either. It was, but we were far from being a business that had existed in Evanston.
Right.
Evanston, you may or may not know, was the seat of the temperance movement.
Oh,
Yeah,
did not know that.
So, Frances Elizabeth Willard was, had a house in Evanston.
Okay.
Very safe place to be back then.
Sure.
Northwestern also, being,
Yep.
I guess, stood up from a religious sort of facet, protected the town quite a bit, or the area. There was at some point in time, I think in late 1800s or even early 1900s, don't quote me exactly on that, but there was Northwestern had established a 3-mile rule where no alcohol could be sold in that.
Really?
So that's kind of like what kept Evanston as a dry town until 1979.
wow, and
or
kids
so.
still went there for school.
Right.
And who's that Francis guy that you mentioned?
It's a woman.
Woman,
Who's
yeah.
that Francis?
Francis Scott Key? No, he wrote the Star Spangled Banner.
You know what? I don't see gender.
She was very
You don't
very
see
important.
gender? I do.
Well, she was instrumental in getting women to vote, right, and
Right.
women's rights. But there was also way back in the day, there was
temperance
also
movement.
the temperance movement, which led to prohibition,
Yeah.
which led to a lot of the things that, I guess, actually in hindsight, makes the U.S. what it is for craft beer and distilleries, right? Because there's no other country in the world
That's right.
that is as interesting as ours, and we had all that rich past of
That's
like,
right.
you can't have this. But anyway, we going to Evanston zoning department and telling them like, I want to start this nano brewery, what is a nanobrewery?
A nanobrewery.
Well, it's a very, very small microbrewery, by the order of thousands.
I'm going to make like 3 cans of beer. That's what we're going to do.
So we were able to kind of convince them that let these guys have their little business. It's not going to work anyway. There's the son of the guy who did I forget his name now, but the guy who looked at some of those plans before. He's a big fan of Sketchbook. He comes over to our Evanston location all the time, and he always reminds me, well, my dad said, look at these guys. They're never going to survive.
They're going to end up selling beer from behind an orange door in bottles. That's all they're going to do.
And we were trailing essentially few spirits, right?
Okay.
That opened up also in an alley about a block away from where we were a few years before. I think it was about 4 years.
Okay.
Paul Letko was the founder at the time. Since then, they've been sold to Heaven Hill.
Oh, yeah.
So still, one of my favorite whiskeys around is theirs, the rye especially. Temperance, rest in peace. Temperance also opened a year before we did, and then Smiley Brothers. So we kind of we're part of this little sort of emergence of
nice.
I want to say alcohol businesses in that way, but more in small businesses, making craft, spirits, craft beer.
Well, the people at the civic leaders decided to open their minds a little bit and let these small businesses open up, and it wasn't what they were used to having people sell, but obviously did all right.
Yeah, making our towns a little more interesting.
Especially if within 3 miles. If you go to school at Northwestern, you're spending all your time studying, you could use a beer. Now, you mentioned you grew up working in a family business. That business was in Brazil. You're a Brazilian native.
That's right.
Does your worldview and all your travels, does that impact and guide the decisions you make on what you're going to brew here at Sketchbook?
Wow, that's a tough. I've never heard that question before, but I'm sure it does.
That's what I do.
I'm sure it does. I think it does, but part of it is probably personality and growing up in a small business where we have a saying in Brazil that's very similar to the Spanish or the Mexican saying, la lucha, which means the struggle. Yes. You get up in the morning and you go vamos pra luta, which just means let's get to work to get things done so that tomorrow is a better day.
Cody thinks working with me is La Lucha.
Only when you wear the mask, but that's a different kind of lucha.
I do like to wear the luchador mask.
Right.
Just wandering around, going to Costco. They don't appreciate it. Let's take a quick break. Sure. Cesar Marron is here. He is the head brewer and managing partner at Sketchbook Brewing Company. We are at their Skokie location. Sketchbookbrewing.com is the website. You can go there. There you've got the Elgin location. They're not pouring beers in an alley anymore, which is good and bad, I guess. Who doesn't want to go in an alley and get a beer? It does feel like a speakeasy at that point. Yeah. You just knock on a door, here's your growler. So we'll be back, and there's a lot more to talk about with Cesar. We'll do that right after this on Crafty Brewers. And we are back at Sketchbook Brewing Company. We are at the Skokie location. Their original tap room is in Evanston. That's right, Evanston, where the temperance movement started, where Northwestern University is, and where Sketchbook started by selling growlers in an alley. And now they have a successful tap room in Evanston, and now this big new facility in Skokie. Cesar Marron is my guest. He is the head brewer and managing partner here at Sketchbook. One of the things I want to talk to you about before we get into sampling some of these beers is not only are you brewing a lot of award-winning beers, but we mentioned at the top that you are also an Illinois green business, and you've been recognized as one of the industry leaders in the sustainability movement as far as brewing. So that on paper to everybody, they go, oh, that must mean they do good stuff. What does it mean in practice? How did Sketchbook become so involved in sustainability, and what does it mean for you and the rest of the company on a day-to-day basis?
We started out in the alley in Evanston. And very small, a very busy alley. It's residential on one side, on the east side, and it's commercial on the west side. There's restaurants. So, as much as I like to say, and which is true, sustainability has been with me for the longest time. I think I actually learned a lot from starting the brewery.
In what way?
We had to basically account for everything that we're where we're going to put this, the mash, right? I mean, when you grain out, where we're going to put this, we put in the alley. It smells in 2 days. We have neighbors complaining. We can't have the neighbors complain because they complain. Evanston's going to get mad about it and tell us we can't do that. So very early on, we had to basically find ways to not put that in the trash. So that's really kind of where it all started in some ways. Out of necessity, partly necessity, partly like, you know what, this is the spent grains from brewing. It's not trash. It does not belong in landfill.
Right.
And we all know the troubles we have with landfill, right? I mean, Chicago doesn't have a landfill. We have to sell it somewhere else.
Somebody else, yep.
So it's somebody else's problem, and it becomes more expensive for all of us. So we started partnering with farmers as soon as possible. We had a farmer, farmer that that had some cattle. She would come over. And again, I want to pause a little bit and say that the Illinois really brewer community, and I'm part of the Illinois Brewers Guild.
Okay.
So I know a lot of the breweries in Illinois. Have met all of them.
ICBG, shout out.
That's right. We all learn from each other. Right. So when I needed something, I would post out a question and people would actually respond and say like, hey, this person comes over and picks out my grains. So we got a hold of this farmer at the time that had, several dozen heads of cattle, and she'd come to do her loop in Chicago with a trailer, with a gooseneck trailer.
Oh, wow.
And, just unload a IBC tote, and I would load mine, and, vice versa. So, we all grew that. We moved to Skokie.
So people can picture this when you're like at the Evanston, at the original tap room. Is it a dumpster full of used grain? Is it a couple dumpsters full? How much are we talking at that level? And then when you say you have outgrown it, obviously here you're brewing a lot more beer.
Yeah.
What kind of volume are we looking at?
So essentially it depends on how much you're brewing. So every, for a commercial brewery, it goes up and down, but every barrel of beer, every 31 gallons of beer, it's anywhere from 60 to 120 pounds of grain that you're using. Depends on the alcohol content, depends on what you're doing, and how efficient the brewery is. So when we're very little in Evanston, starting with 300-400 barrels, we could use. I was actually carrying our grains to a talking farm here in Skokie for their composting program.
Oh, okay.
As soon as we had too much of that, then we started using a composting company that would come in, and then we outgrew that too. So then there was the farmer, and then when that relationship couldn't keep going because she sold her cattle, that's why. We were putting in the dumpster. So then we would have like 2 dumpsters, 4 cubic yard full every week, right? And I was watching that as a hawk every day. If if it was leaking or not, we had to line the cans or the containers, and if the trash pickup didn't happen, that could be a problem. So all that stuff was just too much. Now talking about our production in Skokie, we closed the year last year in 2024, just shy of 5,000 barrels. Still not a ton of beer, pretty sizable amount.
I was going to say, it sounds good to me.
That was, equated to about, anywhere from 10 to 15,000 pounds of grains a week.
Wow.
We have a trailer now for the last few years. We have a trailer, a dump trailer, and a pickup truck. That's part of that sustainability program. We worked on a grant with Cook County.
Oh, wow.
It's called BRIGHT program, which is a business reduction in the environment.
Okay.
So they work in figuring out companies, mostly companies that have some sort of pollutant, whether chemical or otherwise, like a dry cleaner and mechanic shop. And they opened up food and beverage businesses just like 2023. We jumped in right away.
Oh, nice.
Because I've been kind of looking for this stuff. Then, after a year of assessment and figuring out what they could do, they awarded us a grant, and then we got a pickup, an EV pickup truck, and then the trailer we already had. We have a few chargers. So every week now we take those grains to 1 or 2 different farms.
Oh, wow.
So they don't go to the landfill.
That's good.
That's only one aspect.
Can eat them, and then so the grain, obviously that's a big worry. But like you said, you're creating all this spent grain every week. So what other sustainability aims do you guys have here at Sketchbook?
Yeah, so a lot of other things that sometimes they seem very small, like baselining and measuring our water consumption.
Okay.
Essentially, I mean, water is,
Oh yeah.
you
You need some water, don't you?
Yeah.
Especially for the Grodziskie.
yeah, we use water for everything, right? So cleaning and brewing, and we're selling the water transformed into beer. So baselining the water, which is something that we've done for a while now, helps us to understand our processes and how well we're doing. And that's very important. It helps us save money too. Every brewery out there can save money by understanding what their usage is and trying to kind of keep track of all of that. Our EV truck was a big one with the chargers. So we got a charger for the EV truck, and then 2 chargers that we're hoping to release to the public on Earth Day.
Oh, really?
Just a few days from now. We're just waiting for one little permit thing from the village. So that's going to be something available for our customers and everybody else out there.
And that's we'll just throw this in there. At the Skokie location, I don't know about the parking in Evanston at the original tap room, but here there's lots of parking. So
There's lots of parking,
it's great if you're driving an electric vehicle. Soon there will be a couple chargers.
Very soon, yeah.
So you get charged up in here, your car gets charged up out there. Everything's good. So as far as your customers, they hear about all the great sustainability that you're doing. What would a customer notice if they come into either Evanston or here in Skokie? What would they notice to go, oh wow, Sketchbook is really doing something for the environment?
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of those things where people usually don't go out just saying like, I'm going there because they're doing this, right? But we've heard a few, so we know a little bit more. I don't measure that necessarily, but there's a huge marketing potential. And I should say this with a word of caution. We don't do that for the marketing potential, and I think no one else should, but understand that it is there.
Yeah.
Consumers like myself and many others out there today, they want to know where their product comes from. I want this beer because it's local. I want to work with that company. These people are doing the right thing, right? So we do here, and one way that we maybe one way to measure this is how many can holders, we call pack techs, little plastic can holders.
Right.
How many of those we get here a week?
Cody, are you listening? I was unpacking the equipment. Cody's got one of those pack techs just in one of the bags. I'm like, why are you carrying this around? So he'll give it to you.
I've been waiting to find somebody to gift it to.
Well, you're all about sustainability.
It's my donation to for.
We'll take it.
You're helping the environment.
Guess what?
Thank you, Cody.
We'll reuse it, and that's about last year was 15% of all can holders used were reused from customers that brought them back.
Nice.
So not only they don't do well on the recycling bin, for various reasons. So taking them back and putting them in the right, separating them into the right place, which we do. In partnership with other breweries, Heffaker as an example, they take the pack techs.
I've heard that at and I actually have a stack of them at home, and I'm like, I got to remember to bring those somewhere.
But what we do here is we go a step further, and we look at all of them and we separate the color by color. I wash and sanitize them, and we reuse them.
There you go.
So we end up saving money, upcycling it instead of like just recycling it. And that is something that I've heard directly from customers that they feel good about it, and they sometimes I get an email and say like, hey, I'm holding these. We had a bottle shop come in the other day, and they brought 6,000 pack techs.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, that's another facet of it. Another big one is we've been watching our plastics use. We all know plastics. Some get recycled, some don't. Our labels. We're trying to get more and more printed cans in the market. These guys here,
printed cans,
right? And that helps us with labor, so we're not, doing labels all the time. And also, every can, a label is about 3-something grams of label that ends up as plastic in the landfill.
Yeah.
So we're on the path to reducing our plastic use by about 1.5 metric tons a year.
Wow.
Just by reducing labels completely. If we get to 100%, it'd be great. We're already at 80% right now. So.
Because I see most of the cans as we look around here, not only the wall behind us, most of the cans are pre-printed. Then there's a few pallets of what people would consider the traditional aluminum can before they before.
And I know my friends in the beer label industry are going to hate me for this. Very upset. But you know what? I mean, this is something that I think we all have to come to terms with, that things have to change sometimes, and we'll get there. Where technology changes and the products that are used change. so that we're doing something good for our Mother Earth that we live in.
And you know, like you said, you got to adapt. The change comes. Especially you being in the brewing industry, the amount of changes that you've seen since you guys were selling growlers in the alley to now has to be mind-boggling.
Absolutely. I can't even list them.
Well, then let's not try, and let's go into...
Is it real quick? What does it take to go change that production from a plastic label like that to label on the can? Is it like a huge lift or something people aren't really thinking about?
No, people are thinking about it. In fact, there's one of the game changers in the industry. Actually, I should say two of them. What you're looking behind us here is cans that are printed with like what they call litho.
Okay.
And that's as much as I know. It's more than that, but I know it's called litho, which essentially those cans are produced. The aluminum is punched into the shape. It's formed and then printed before it even gets put in the pallet, right?
Oh, okay.
But we have to buy 155,600 cans for each brand.
Okay.
That's $25,000 a order.
Yeah.
Most smaller breweries, guess what we do really well? We make a lot of different beers,
Yes.
right? We don't
But
make
not
just two
that
beers.
many.
Correct. So the labels came in, which already exists for a long time, but the pressure-sensitive labels came in, which are really easy to apply. You can apply it to a wet can. You don't have to have a huge gluing facility like some of those bigger breweries have for bottles or equipment. They're wonderful, super easy to use. What they allow us all to do is, or have allowed for a long time, is to have, I want to make 30 cases of this beer.
Yep.
I just buy the labels for that. I can make 30 cases. So it still has a very, very good use case for that.
Sure.
What has disrupted that market a little bit is these digital printing facilities that have this, like awesome machines that basically like it. I don't know exactly, but it's kind of like imagine an inkjet printer. There's like the cans turn really fast and then the cans get printed. You can put any color you want. It will look a lot better than what you can do in litho. And it's ink that's a lot less than the plastic in there. So
Wow.
again, a progression, of technology that gets us now
Well, you still
For
need
any-
your designers.
Oh,
As
absolutely.
All your pre-printed cans are different designs and different
Yep.
colors and different
still
different
to
things.
do all that. Now, for those out there thinking like, oh, should I not drink a beer because it's a label? Absolutely not. Don't do that,
No.
right? If you want to do something to help, peel that label off before you recycle your can. That doesn't mean your can is not going to be recycled, but
Right.
what I've learned from the recycling facilities is that once they get those cans to the actual recycler that will melt them down to aluminum again, they will look at those bales, and if it looks like there's a lot of, actually they've told me like it looks like the craft bales, too much craft beer cans in there, right? Then they'll kick it to the side because that takes a different process.
Okay.
It creates more. It costs more to actually melt those cans because you have to melt them and melt all that stuff that's in it. Off gas it.
So peel the
removing
labels, put them all over your refrigerator and everything else, like every cooler at every brewery, and that'll be.
That's exactly right. Use that for marketing for
Yes.
the brewery that you love.
That's two great tips, though. So if people are listening or watching and they want to help with sustainability, peel the label off the can. And when you have the 4-pack things, they don't recycle super well. So just bring them into your local
Bring them
brewery.
into your local brewery
Yeah.
or your local shop. Yeah.
Cool.
And I'm sure every brewery will take them.
Yeah, absolutely. And your shops too. And I want to give a shout out to Austin at Beer Miscuous.
Okay.
He's the one who brought me 6,000.
I used to
Handles.
live like 3 blocks from Beer Miscuous when I lived
Yeah.
in the city. It was one of the best beer shops in town for sure.
They know beer. They know how you should receive it as a consumer, right?
yeah,
That's it.
And I knew how to drink it as a consumer. Let me tell you.
Well, let's speak of that. Here's the big segue. Let's talk about some of the beers that Cesar
right.
brought out. So you've got 3 different ones, and one we have talked about a lot today, the Grodziskie.
That's right.
I'm saying it very poorly. So what did you bring for us to highlight and
All right.
sample?
Well, so there's so many, and it is true. You've probably heard this before. That every beer that we make, pretty much every beer, it's kind of like, it's a child of the brewery, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
it's really hard for me to say, well, this is my favorite. I hate that one. No. We only don't like it when it gives us trouble in the brew house.
Okay.
But then again, let's just like any child, right?
That's right. Sometimes, listen.
That happens. So I brought some of the originals. So
Okay.
the Grodziskie, as we talked about before, Sam Adams LongShot contest, which is kind of gave me the sort of the lift. And in some ways, if I was looking for investors, which you can think of my business partners are like, hey, why should we do this? Like, well, I won a medal with the
I've
Grodziskie.
already won a medal. Yeah.
Although it was a beer that's not easy for everyone to drink. So that kind of like kickstarted everything.
Okay.
Very, very original. Snowy Owl, also giving a shout out to my business partner, Sean Decker, a home brewer at the time. And now this is a beer that he, if I recall correctly, he told me he made at least half a dozen times, if not more, trying to perfect it.
Okay.
And basically what we have today is basically what he perfected in his, homebrew days.
So he had the same passion you did for trying to dial making everything okay.
And he named this, while it was a homebrew, Snowy Owl, because one of the brew days he described, there was a migration of snowy owls that reached as far south as Evanston, and he witnessed it. And he's a birder. He is a bird watcher. So we've always deal. And we've actually have had some marketing, issues with this beer in terms of like hey, Snowy Owl, it's a red ale. It's a modern red ale. It's a red ale with a nice amount of hops in it. So it's not your boring, dad's. I guess I'm aging myself. It would be like somebody else's dad's amber ale. That's too sweet. Which I always loved those too, to be honest. They were very flavorful. So this has got a nice amount of like Amarillo hops in it.
Okay.
And rye to give a little spiciness to it. We used to make this beer year round. We still do make it year round, but in the summer, when people look at a beer called Snowy Owl, they think it's a winter ale.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's been with us for 10 years now. And people have learned, and those who learned, they love it. They drink it every day if it's available.
People are strange that way. Like I would drink ambers and malty stuff all year long. That's what I like. I mean, there's some, I like a Pilsner and a lager, for lighter stuff, or a Mexican lager like you guys have. But they're like, oh no, we only brew those in the fall and winter. I'm like, yeah, but I want to drink them all the time.
And that's
let's pour and taste one.
Let's pour and taste, yeah.
And then the other one, which will be the last one to try here on this trio, is sort of like we did this in 2023 and 4. We created our West Coast IPA series that we have a session, a middle of the ground, if you will, 6.5% coastal, and then a double of it. So like anybody interested in trying all 3 of them, we don't make it all at the same time, but they overlap once in a while. And then I have too many of them to, there's too many others that would love
there's
to.
a lot.
But we'll get to that
people
later.
should just go to sketchbookbrewing.com and you can see what's on tap here in Skokie and at the original tap room in, say it with me, Cody, Evanston.
All right. Well, against what others might say, let's try with a smoke beer.
Yes.
Because it is the lightest. So
I didn't think we were ever going to get to try this. When the Sound Growler was the first place we went. Shout out Sound Growler. They were out of it. And I asked when I went up and ordered a beer early and your lovely bartender was like, no, we're out of it. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess we are never going to get to try this beer.
I held this back so we could do this, right?
So is this the same, pretty much the same recipe that you did when you won Sam Adams, or after you won that, did you keep tinkering? Because
it's pretty much
brewers
the same
like to tinker.
Yeah. Well, yes, but I don't. If I get something right, I want to do it right again. Like my sourdough bread, I want to get it right every time.
This smells like not a cigarette, but like a smoke, like a barbecue.
Well, campfire. Campfire is what we usually hear people saying, like, "Oh, it feels like I'm drinking a campfire."
Yeah.
Some people that are less, I believe, more sensitive, I should say, on the smoke, they will say like, "Wow, it's like I'm drinking a smoked sausage in a glass." I'm like, "Well, that's vegan." So you can go ahead and take it.
You do get the smoke, but it's not overwhelming. But it's there, and I like smoked beers. I like smoked meats. I'm like you. You said you like smoked everything. You get that hint, but it's not like, ooh. It just is like, oh. Yeah. And there is an effervescence to it too, like you mentioned before, with the clarity and it's a nice balance.
Yeah. So I mean the malt. So you asked if we do it pretty much the same way, outside of like processes that are a little bit different from a homebrew scale to a 7-barrel scale to our 20-barrel brew house now. There's the little differences in processes, but the water profile is exactly the same that we've done from the beginning. The malt bill is exactly the same. We use Wireman, one of their heirloom malts.
Okay.
So we don't smoke our own malts. It's a little too much variability.
Yeah.
awesome for those who've done that before, but it's a lot of cost to do.
How do you smoke malts?
Roll it up tight, bruh.
There you go. Say no more.
Sorry. Is it like we're smoking a brisket? Do they just put a bunch of hops in?
Historically,
in
you've heard floor kiln malt, right? Before,
Yes.
A traditional malt that's spread out on a floor, that then there's fire underneath that floor heating it up to gently get rid of the moisture and dry the malt. Well, guess what these guys had to use in Poland back in the day before gas or electric? They used a source of heat, which was wood, and their wood of choice was oak.
Okay.
In some other places, could have been other types of wood.
Yeah.
So just like smoking meat, now we can go get the wood that we want.
Yes,
but
exactly.
before you're gonna have your apple wood from your apple tree that you can
That's it.
chop a branch a year or something.
Yeah.
But so that's where it comes from. Now, the modern way of doing it, I don't know exactly what Wireman does, but one of the modern ways of doing it is actually to basically pump cold smoke into the malt as the malt is drying.
Oh, okay.
Right. So then
Nice.
you're going to get that smoke from the wood source, while the drying is actually happening either via gas or electric, because those modern malteries are not they're not burning wood anymore. I hope not.
Listen, who knows what they're up to?
But yeah, so what you get here is it's light, yet there's enough body in it because it's all wheat. It's 100% wheat malt, which is sometimes brewers get scared of using 100% wheat on their or more than 60%. There's no husk in it, and it's a little more. There's more more proteins,
Okay.
More glucans, which will make the mash stickier.
Oh,
but we've kind of
okay.
honed our process to never have any problems with it, and
Yeah.
we use rice hulls for sure.
Okay.
to make sure that we can lauter that and get the liquid that we want. In fact, the Sam Adams version of this, when they picked it up after I won the contest, the beer that they produced could not be 100% smoked wheat malt. So they did
really?
a percentage of two-row
Okay.
or Pilsner malt. I don't know exactly. And we could tell right away
Really?
that it was a drier beer. It was a lighter kind of body
Okay.
to it. But they just couldn't. I think they made the beer on a 600 barrel brew house, not a 5-gallon.
Yeah, that
or a
makes
20
sense.
barrel.
That'd be a lot of smoked malts.
This is a unique flavor profile. We've tasted a lot of IPAs, lagers, across the board. Maybe I just don't drink a lot of smoked beer, but it's different. It's a different. It's I wouldn't call it like a bitter because it's not like an IPA. But what are some other words that you would use to describe it to people that haven't had a Grodziskie before?
The other smoked beers I've had have been amber in color,
Right. Or like a
a little darker.
more residual sugars or
Yeah.
a dark. Yeah. I mean, we do a few others. We try to anyway when we have room for it. We do a Bock with a.
Okay.
I think it's this. Like I said, it's basically 99% smoked malt. But it's a gentler smoke. You can, if you eat the grains, it doesn't just doesn't punch you in the face. It's not like chewing a cigar.
Okay.
There's some other smoke malts that you want to use 10 to 20% max, because otherwise you're going to get into that plastic phenolic Band-Aid potentially kind of. And the Grodziskie, what's interesting is as it ages, it gets even better. It kind of mellows and melds. Those flavors kind of meld together a little more. And some other smoked beers, as they age, they might get a little more phenolic, and you don't want that.
We
But
don't
it's
want
all
that.
about-
Cody, how many times do I have to tell you? No phenolic.
You've told me that a surprising number of times.
It's strange, isn't it? Because I don't know what it means.
It's not
And
a thing
yet,
you would think come up that much, but
It shouldn't, especially when a man has no idea what he's saying. But I do say it.
maybe that should be our new tagline.
Phenolic?
Sure.
No phenolic?
No phenolic.
All right. Well, listen. Well, we
Yeah.
talked about the smoked owl. Should we try a little bit of that, or should we jump to the coastal?
Well, let's do the snowy owl,
Little
because
snowy owl.
I love to I
Ooh,
love
wow.
to tell people.
I love that color.
Yeah, I love to tell people, hey, don't be scared if you heard, and it's usually the 40-somethings out there that had tasted amber ales or older amber ales of the past, where they were too sweet, maybe a little cloying kind of.
Okay.
This is not that at all. This is what we call a more modern red ale. We actually called this a red ale to get away from the amber name, but now a new generation of drinkers, right? Maybe two.
Right.
They're like, Amber ales? I love amber ales. Is that an amber ale? Like amber, red, same thing in this case.
Well, because I've been drinking your red lager, the which night?
The Holschnitt.
The Holschnitt. It is a red lager. So, and that's been very good.
That's exactly an amber. It's also like an amber lager.
The colors are just a tiny bit different.
Yeah, you look at the
right. A little bit lighter and more gold here for the Snowy Owl, and a little darker for the Holschnitt.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really good,
isn't it?
This is really good. I like amber ales. My in-laws bring me a pack of amber ales from like North Carolina whenever they visit. Otherwise, I'm not exposed to many of them. Right? It's not like everyone's not going out.
They've kind of disappeared a little bit. Like I can still name a few that were always my go-tos. Bell's Amber.
Yes.
Not as hoppy as this. Hoppy as in flavor hops, but wonderful beer. Alaskan Amber is also still a really good beer. When I find it, I just get it, right away. And of course, you're a local craft brewery because we all love to do different beers, and we will do that. But as a beer that actually does really well in distribution, we do a pretty good job, but we have to do this once a year only. If we actually have it a year long, it'll kind of like fall off.
So when do you bring it back in the fall? Because you said people's perception that Snowy Owl is a wintertime.
Correct. Yeah, it's a little it's a little heavier, really, but it's not really. It's like a 5%, 5-ish% beer with just a balanced amount of crystal malts in here or darker malts to get you to this sort of caramel.
And you get that tiny bit of rye bitterness on the back end, which is really good. So I'm a big fan of Abita Amber.
Yes, that's right. That's another one.
That's
correct.
Yeah. This is really tasty.
Amarillo hops, which I think it goes wonderful with the amount of melanoidins and darker malts in here.
What makes an Amarillo hop special that it would go with these malts?
I think there's a good amount of citrus in there, but it's almost like this marmalade type of citrus. It goes well. So it goes with something a little bit on that has a little bit of that sweetness perception. Not sweet, but that perception of it.
Snowy Owl, drink it in the summer.
That's right.
Be a rebel rouser.
I could see this being a good beer to drink any time of year. And like to your point, it's not hoppy like IPA hoppy. Like I don't love IPAs. I'm not an IPA guy. So this is hitting good.
Yeah.
It's hitting really nice.
Well, this is one of the beers that Amy, my wife, will bring a 4-pack home, and that's it. That's their beer. That and Orange Door.
It's really good and very. Like I said, I've only had a couple rye beers, and the ones I've had I liked because there is that little bit of. It's a different sort of bitterness than a hop bitterness.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's
got a little spiciness to it. It's got a little, and
that's what I was looking for.
And if it's not there, you will notice. If it's there, it just makes it wonderful. I mean, like I mentioned before, I'm also a sucker for rye whiskey.
Yeah.
I think it just adds a lot of that complexity and.
Have you ever brewed it? I know this was one of the original recipes. Have you ever brewed it without the rye and?
No, we did not. No,
never tried it without.
No, you mentioned experimentation. We do enough of experimentation, but not to that level.
Okay, yeah. No, I mean, if something's good, why mess with it?
Right, exactly.
But that's all right. So you mentioned that Coastal is part of your IPA flight, for lack of a better term.
So yeah, another thing I'd like to, as we were talking about beers in the last 10 years, at least for Sketchbook, when we started the brewery, we were sort of bringing beer to a community that it was kind of new to them. Not new beers, but beers like, a local beer for us, great. I don't drink beer. And it'd be like, well, why don't you try this? We'd give them Snowy Owl or something else. Bitter IPAs for our initial clientele were they would turn their face and go like, I don't like that.
It's a hard sell. Yeah.
It's a hard sell. So we came up with at the time our first IPA, which was our 12th recipe. We did not start with an IPA, unlike many other breweries, because the brewers liked it. We liked it, but we're like, I can just go buy my IPA. I need to make what my customers are going to buy.
There you go.
And then we got enough requests that we made Orange Door was our first IPA, the 12th recipe. But we never said that was based on a West Coast style, because if we said that, people at the time were saying like, just like some of those that my face goes like this when I drink it. So we didn't. Fast forward to 3 years ago, we're like, well, West Coast IPAs made a comeback really strong again because a new generation of drinkers came up. Right. They don't remember. They don't know what, some of the other ones
They don't know that their dads hated them.
even had their names, sort of like to ruin your palate type thing. Yep. I won't name any of them. I like them. So we came back to like, well, let's make a series of West Coast style IPAs. Keep our Orange Door the way it is. Right. Okay. It is essentially a West Coast style.
And that's one of your most popular beers.
It's our best seller by far. Yeah. So we came up with Coastal, which was also a nod to our water source here in Evanston or the Great Lakes, and it's a series of 3. This one is our 6.5%. We call the one. Okay. And then we have a 4.1%, which is a session coastal, and then an 8.5%, which is a double coastal.
Oh, okay.
We use pretty much all the hops that we use are from Hophead Farms, just across the pond.
Very well.
In Michigan, we again try to make this a little more on the modern version of a West Coast, which is
thank you,
a beer that's loaded with hops for flavor, not necessarily for bitterness.
Thank you. And that was the big thing you mentioned as people became. Thank you, Cody. Here you go.
That can's never coming back, is it?
No, Cody. He'll show good manners in front of you, Cesar, and he'll give it back. But then afterward, he'll just come over and hit it like it has.
So all your traditional hops, again, just going back to some of the hops that made American craft IPAs famous, right? Sierra Nevada being one of them. Centennial Cascade hops, which the Centennial and Cascade hops from Hophead Farms here in Michigan, they tend to be a little fruitier than the ones from the West Coast,
which are more like piney and mossy kind of. Is that
You're still going to get the piney on this, but a little more fruity, a little more pineapple-y.
What's nice is there's definitely that hop bitterness, but it's not an overwhelming thing where because since we've been doing the show, Cody, you'll attest this, I couldn't have a lot of hops, and now because I've sampled more and tried more, it's like, oh yeah, I'm more tolerant, maybe I just like them more. This is right in my sweet spot for level of hops because it's there. There's no mistaking that it's an IPA, but it's also not like, oh boy.
Yeah, it doesn't kick you in the face.
No, because and you mentioned it. Just you alluded to it with the names of some of these. It seemed for a time that a number of brewers were just like, more hops is better. So we're going to put every hop in this beer. And it's thick like syrup because there's so much hops and people can't drink it. But, now I think a lot of brewers have found that beautiful happy medium where people will go, oh, I didn't think I liked IPAs. This is an IPA. Yeah, I like this. This is an IPA.
Yeah, I don't know what one would call it. But if you ask, I think if you put 10 brewers together, right here today and say, like, what are you drinking right now? I think probably 8 of them will say a lager.
Yep.
Now that's not to say that they're sick of IPAs. Just that we've had like this, like you said, more and more. Can we do 3 pounds of hops per barrel? Yes. Can we do 5? Can we do 6? where some of these beers, you'd get a 70% a beer out of the tank because everything else is soaked in hops. And that's a lot of money.
Yes,
no, they are wonderful. I have to agree.
Hops
are great. Hops are beautiful. They there's hundreds of varieties. That's right, you do, yeah. But then again, right? I mean, we want to do things where it makes sense. Both
you want people to drink it, right?
And we want people to drink. Yeah. I mentioned before, my wife taking a 4-pack of Snowy Owl. Of course, she doesn't pay for it.
I would hope not.
Is that a sore spot?
No, that's correct. The correction. She's already paid for it.
I was going to say, she got you into the whole thing, and I'm sure she's paid the price of moon.
But the idea is like you drink 2 or 3 of them and you're happy. So that's how we're happy is when we make a product that I know people will drink one and they'll order the second one, and we don't see glasses all over the tap room half full because they just couldn't. If you don't want to drink anymore because you had enough, yes, leave your beer in the glass. But if a beer is not good, then it kind of hurts the pride, right? So we want to make things that people are happy with. What they're eating, very important here. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times we end up forgetting that beer is a great accompaniment to food and to friends and to a conversation. And we want that 4-pack to disappear, or that
Exactly.
pint to go, you know, and
Or
be
this
drunk.
wall of cans.
This whole wall here.
The whole wall.
We need to
Just
fill it.
Come and get your insufficient clearance, and they got a few 100,000 of them, so there's plenty. All right. Well, now we move on to what we like to call the Final Four, Cesar. It is
Right.
the same 4 questions that we ask every brewer. There's no right or wrong answers, but there are some answers that we will comment that maybe the majority of brewers have answered the same. So, but this is all you. It's all you. So, first question is the hill you'll die on, a style of beer that maybe people are clamoring for. They think it's, in the zeitgeist, it's very popular. But you, as a man who is focused on creating quality, would just go, nah, this isn't for me.
Oh, something that isn't for me.
Something you will not brew because no matter what.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm more of a business person right now than I am a brewer. In fact, I mean, you're calling me a head brewer. That's fine. I moved up in some ways. And I have Eric is my head brewer now here at the brewery.
Okay. Wow.
Which is
got to
okay.
update the website.
Which is
I got right from the website.
Which is okay.
Sketchbookbrewing.com.
So I call myself the director of brewing operations.
Oh.
So I call the shots. Let's put it that way.
There you go. Okay.
So when we hear like, hey, we let's make more wheat beers. We need wheat beers. I'm like, well, they're wonderful, but they don't sell.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't want to make a beer that will stay in the cooler,
Yes,
and you as a consumer will have to drink it old, right? And the other ones are like beers that are really high alcohol. Like right now, I believe people have been they're smart in some ways. They're smart. I also feel like I'm smart. I want you to buy a 4-pack and drink all 4 of those beers the same day.
Yes.
So if I give you something that's 15%, however wonderful that may be,
Right.
you're not going to finish that 4-pack.
Nope.
I mean, maybe you will, but
Says the man who's
So
sitting behind 2 big Fobab.
that's right. So that's why I said I want to be careful about this.
Yes.
So it's not that we won't make it. Now the other one. So I'm not answering this question really.
I like it though. You're saying a lot without really answering it. It's perfect.
The other one is an American light lager. Now, would we not make that? We haven't made one yet.
Yeah.
There's no reason for it. There's wonderful American light lagers made by large breweries out there that this event right here used to bring nearly a full pallet of one of those.
Yes.
For the brewers to drink it. So why do it? How do we compete with that? That doesn't make any business sense. However, brewers that are making that, and I don't want to say that they're not doing the right thing, they're doing that because they want the challenge. They want the challenge to make, hey, we're gonna make our own American light lager right here, right in your neighborhood, and you call it local, so come buy ours instead of buying the mass-produced one. So wonderful as well, right?
Yeah.
Wait, but I have a question about that because you talked about you waited to get an IPA is kind of for the same reason, right? Like, were there a ton of IPAs everywhere? So why? Yeah, what's the difference there?
No, you're absolutely right, and I think this came full circle here.
Here we go.
We basically looked at each other at the very first few months of Sketchbook in the alley and said, like, why are we going to make an IPA?
alley.
It's expensive.
Okay.
It's messy. A lot of hops we can't get. I mean, I remember trying to get Citra. It was $24 a pound. And
sounds like a lot.
Our Centennial and Cascade at the time were like $8. So like, why you can't sell the beer for 3 times more either, not usually. And not unless you're some breweries, but that's also changing.
We gotta give Cesar a couple more, and then all the names that he's holding, the floodgates will open and the dirt will come out.
I love all of them, by the way. It's good. No. Hats off to all of them. So the Orange Door, the IPA that we made, it was essentially customers coming in and saying like, "Do you have an IPA?"
Oh, okay.
Sorry, we don't. Snowy Owl was on the board.
Right.
We had a pale ale on the board. I forget the others, but and then it would turn around and leave. And that's one
They'll
thing that I
literally
do not
walk out.
Yeah. So we had a few people. I mean, it doesn't take many, right? For me, if something's not working, I'm like, I got to make it work. So, and that was too much. So like, well, let's go ahead and make our IPA. We're going to make it our way. We're going to take something we love collectively and we're proud of, and we're going to change a few things, based on the profile, and then make it towards the group of people, the consumer that's coming to our door right now. And it became what it became today. Orange Door is that IPA that we have. Again, very traditional hops, Centennial, Cascade, a little bit of Citra, because again, we couldn't pay for it at the time. But we're not going to change it now because it's perfect.
Right,
So-
yeah, why mess with it?
and it's like our biggest seller. So yeah, so in hindsight, we were holding back and saying like, we're not going to make an IPA. There's tons of great IPAs already, but we had to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There you go. All right, question number 2, a beer that you brewed and your customers might have liked it, but for whatever reason, you guys have decided, no, we're not going to do this one again.
There's a lot of those. Oh, sorry. Yes, I do. I do remember.
Here we go.
A milkshake IPA. Hell no. We made it once. The can art is awesome. It's so cute. It was, I don't know. I wanted to experiment. They were exploding at the time. It was years ago now.
Sure, yeah.
People were paying top dollar for those things, twice as much as we would sell anything else for. So like, all right, technically speaking, it's easy. Let's throw a bunch of lactose in this and a bunch of fruit on that, blah, blah, blah. So we made it. Did it taste good? It did taste good. 3 months later, the mango was separating in the can, and when you poured it in the glass, it looked like it had like, like curdles in there. And I'm like, and I basically, I didn't have to tell anybody else. It was just me looking in the mirror, kind of saying like, we're never doing this again. It doesn't matter how many dozens of people say.
Wow.
So yeah,
All right.
we're never going to
that's
do lactose anything.
Perfect.
That's our number one answer to what's the hill you'll die on. You'll never even do this. So
Yeah,
the fact that you did it once,
Brewers will not
you're
go
very
with milkshake
brave.
IPA.
There you go.
Very
So there you go.
brave.
So that can answer the first question too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 2 for 1. That's good. And you brought this up before about beer being a great accompaniment for food and conversation. And our final question of the final 4
wait,
is
what about the off the clock beer?
Oh, that's right.
We skipped one.
No, I did. I skipped question 3. Your favorite off-the-clock beer. See, that's why he's producing. Because
There is a reason I'm here.
Yeah.
It's the only one.
That is the only
And
reason.
to drink all of this.
And to remind
all
me
of this
that
all the way
Evanston
out.
is not another city, a suburb that starts with an E.
It's fine. This is
Evanston is
And it's
Evanston.
Evanston, Illinois,
Evanston,
not
Illinois.
Wyoming. Yeah.
No, not Wyoming. Or your go-to off-the-clock beer. That should be an easy one.
Yeah. So
Probably not.
it isn't.
why
It
I like.
isn't. So on the clock, funny enough, the beer that
I like that
I don't
you're
know.
drinking on the clock.
Yeah,
That's-
well, right. But the beer that we drink on the clock here is a beer from the tanks that we boil it to do a VDK test, which is brewers will know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And it
Well,
doesn't.
tell
It
us
tastes
what
like
tell us what
garbage.
you're talking about.
So when we're brewing beer, the fermentation process produces diacetyl, which is that butter, kind of like butterscotch butter kind of flavor.
Oh, okay.
Every beer is going to have, lagers have more. Now the yeast will collect that as it finishes fermentation. So one way to know when your beer is ready or done fermenting and ready to crash, cool, or filter it or move on to the next part of the process is to taste it. Really, I mean, our senses are better than anything else. You can do this with machinery as well, but to taste for diacetyl, which is this buttery compound, right? And so we sit around here and then we get one jar of beer from the fermenter that's been cooked basically on 175 degree water for 10 minutes. And we taste that and we taste the one and it's like, well, if it doesn't taste like butter, then we're good. So awful.
Sounds horrible.
Awful. That's the on the clock drinking.
That's the on the clock drink.
That's just to make sure that you guys all out there have the best possible beer. No diacetyl. So the off the clock beer, lately, I mean, like a great lager, like a good lager, you know, does usually not even a sketchbook, beer. I go home and I'll take a Cold Time from Revolution is one of my faves these days. Yeah,
That's good stuff.
You're allowed to say Miller High Life if that's what you're thinking.
well, okay, yeah. Miller High Life.
Listen, everybody.
Miller High Life.
There's so many. I would say 95% of the brewers we talk to, High Life.
High Life. Yeah.
High Life. That's
So-
like you said at Fobab.
So
there's pallets of High Life
Yeah.
in the back.
So there was a questionnaire that came out one day, and I don't know what the results because I don't remember following up on it. But because I think I like Miller High Life, it hits the spot.
Sure.
And it's a wonderful beer. Cold Time is just as great.
Yes.
But I actually started drinking or having appreciation for good beer when I was in Colorado.
Oh.
And I was already like 23 or so.
Okay.
So I didn't really care too much for beer when I was younger than that. It wasn't Coors Banquet,
Okay.
but Coors Banquet was the Miller High Life of the
West,
of the Rocky Mountains, right? So the question that came up was like, is it which one is your favorite, Coors Banquet or Miller High Life? And I believe the answer to, when they got all the answers, it had a lot to do with like where you grew up or where you became of drinking age, which is really around 17, really, right?
17. What are you, a grandfather? But no, for me, if it was Miller High Life. It was always High Life in the 8-pack of little 7-ounce bottles.
Right. Aren't those cute? I just bought 12 of those the other day and I chugged all of them.
Aren't they lovely? Yeah. They're just like, ooh. Ah.
For me, it was Smirnoff Raspberry Twist.
Yeah.
Smirnoff Ice.
Wow.
My college wasn't very.
So many things to say to you about that, and yet I'm not going to say.
So question number 4 now?
Question number 4 is yes. Question number 4, thank you, Cesar, is your favorite food and beer pairing. Like when you go home, maybe you and the family are having dinner and you want a beer, whatever it is that you like the best.
Grew up in Brazil, so eating meat is kind of like in the DNA. I actually do a lot less than that I used to. There was a barbecue on Tuesday, another one on Saturday, another one on Sunday, and they usually last about 6 hours in Brazil, each of them. So I've brought it down quite a bit.
Now I must ask, and I'm sorry to interrupt again, but having been to the Brazilian steakhouses here in Chicago. In Brazil, do they actually come with the meat on the skewer?
Oh yeah, that's the way it goes.
It's an honest question.
I didn't. It was. I wasn't giving you a look.
All right.
And that's what we did. That's what we did in my and Amy and I, our wedding, before our wedding and our rehearsal dinner, we did that on their parents' backyard with, I think it was about 180 pounds of meat and 60 to 80 people. Do the math there. There was a lot of meat for everyone.
Meat.
We didn't serve anything else though. You're eating meat.
Yeah, you got to eat meat.
Yeah,
so you get the meat sweats.
Come out with a skewer or the sword you eat or else.
Now, like here, I get the meat sweats if I eat too much meat. In Brazil, are you so used to eating that quantity of meat that you are immune from the meat sweats?
I mean,
the questions don't always have to do with beer.
You're sweating all the time, and if you're sweating, it's because you're not drinking enough beer.
All right. Fair point.
Very cold beer. It's gotta be 0 Celsius or lower in Brazil.
We learned so many international things on this show. That's the beauty of it.
But I didn't tell you what beer because I really don't know, because it is so situational. Like I will go home. I'll go home now after this show. I'll go home and depending on what if gnocchi is for dinner, I'll have an IPA with that. That's fine, right? But if I have something that's got a lot more flavors to it, I don't want an IPA to get in the way of those flavors, right? So I'm gonna go gravitate towards a lager or a snowy owl for sure,
just so it doesn't
right or our English pub ale, which is wonderful with everything really. So,
and in what situation would you have a Smirnoff Ice Raspberry Twist?
When he was going to prom.
Oh, that's
when he was getting his hair done and nails done at the beauty parlor.
Yeah. Or at 9 a.m. on a Saturday.
You can edit that part out.
We didn't answer the 4th question.
Yes, we did. He said he's not going to say a particular beer, but if he's having gnocchi, he's going to have an IPA to go with it. Boy, for once, I'm the one paying attention. No, and then he said,
I've had.
But if there's something with a lot of flavors and different levels, then he's going to go with like a lager or something else.
It's because I've had most of a snowy owl.
Well, I can't help you with that. Well, we'll have an intervention on another show. That'll be a whole different episode. We'll get all the brewers from the breweries where you lost your mind, and then they'll come in and we'll all do an intervention.
We don't have a space big enough for that.
Well, listen, enough of this. I want to thank Cesar. Cesar Marron is the chief of brewery operations.
I got another raise now.
Listen,
chief now.
At Sketchbook web person, change his title but he's the managing partner. He's in charge of all the beer here at Sketchbook, and we appreciate you being here. It was a lot of fun. Sketchbookbrewing.com, the main production facility, tap room, and outdoor place is here in Skokie. The original tap room is in, let's say it all together, friends, Evanston. Illinois. Evanston, Illinois. Sketchbookbrewing.com. Thank you two for joining us on this edition of Crafty Brewers, Tales Behind Craft Beer. Be sure to support your local breweries because without your support, it is tough going for some of your favorite beers. Crafty Brewers, Tales Behind Craft Beer is produced by award-winning, yes, he has won awards. Award-winning producer Cody Goff. That's no lie. You can check out all our episodes. Get in touch with us on our website, craftybrewerspod.com. And if you have a brewery that you'd like us to talk to, or if you're a brewer like Cesar who didn't have a horrible time and you want to come on the show, open your emails because I'm sending you emails all the time and I want to talk to you. We want to have you on the show because we admire you. You can send us an email too, craftybrewerspod@gmail.com. And Cody, where do people listen to this lovely podcast? Everywhere, correct?
Please follow the show so you automatically get notified when there are new episodes. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and many other podcast apps.
What about the Cool Kid social media app?
If you like social media, we post the best clips from our show and some behind-the-scenes footage on TikTok. You can just find us, search for Crafty Brewers. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please leave a single comment and attempt to spell Grodziskie. And you know what? I can't even pronounce it.
Grodziskie.
You attempt
Grodziskie.
you attempt to spell it, I'll reply personally, literally me, with the correct
really?
spelling. Yeah, well,
You can type
I
too.
have nothing better to do.
Thanks again to Cesar Marron of Sketchbook Brewing for joining us. I'm Brian Noonan. Cheers.
Cheers.